Welcome to the Eonics Podcast, a podcast about software development, new ways of working, and lots of other interesting stuff, like artificial intelligence. We recently did a hack night, and it was all about artificial intelligence with multiple speakers covering all kinds of different topics. And one of them is here with me, Johan Stolk. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you were, I might say, the keynote speaker. You had two presentations.
Yep.
And we also recorded the presentations, and I will link to those to that below, so people can also watch your full presentation on YouTube.
Yep.
But maybe we can start. Can you give a short introduction about yourself, what you do?
So I am a professional software developer, mainly doing .NET at the moment, C#, and very much into Blazor. So that's a front-end technology that I've talked about in another podcast.
Definitely.
And also in my free time, I like to develop games. And currently I'm building on a game that's actually developed in Java and using Android Studio and libgdx. And trying to get it working on Steam Deck. It's already working, but then and the editor and stuff. Well, that's also, you can see a sample of that in the video about the hack night. We'll have a short
demo,
clip
right?
about it, and also code about it.
So if I hear you, one might say you're a real programmer in the sense that you program for work, you program in your free time, you program in all kinds of different languages.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 40 years, so I guess I like it.
Yeah, and I guess that also makes you an interesting person to go into this, because that's what your presentation was about, going into all these new tools, because AI there are many different topics, but what you covered specifically is, how do you call that? The tools that help you with programming?
Yeah,
or how do you describe it?
Yeah, I called the presentation AI for devs, so for developers. So
right.
As a developer, how can you use some of these tools to make your life easier?
Right. And what was your first experience with these kind of tools?
About 9 months ago, I started to use GitHub Copilot, or at first I tried it, of course. And I'm not sure how I got into contact with it, but it's basically, it's in your IDE. It suggests pieces of code, algorithms. It helps you. Like it's a better IntelliSense. So when I started programming, there was no IntelliSense, nothing. It was you had like a simple screen and your editor, and that was
the manual.
That maybe was it. Yeah. The books, so we had to read books in that time. Yeah, I'm an old guy, and now people, I think, are not reading books that much, but it's all on the internet. But then, of course, then you got these editors with IntelliSense, as they call it, and you start typing a certain object instance, and you see all kinds of things that are suggested. So that was already helpful, because programming is nice because you can build things, but the typing itself is not that interesting, of course.
Right.
And now we have, of course, the AI assistants. So the GitHub Copilot, it's something I talked about in my first part of my presentation. So that's already here for, like even before ChatGPT was there available. It was already, you could already use it. So 9 months ago, I started to use it. And at first I thought, well, it doesn't do that much, but then I needed to learn a bit how to work with it. So if your method names that you type are a bit descriptive, or you've typed some comment and it knows what you're planning to do, and it can help you more with suggestions.
So it's really important. That's one thing I hear you say, that it's a new tool, but before you dismiss it as useless, also really get to know the tool and know how to work with it actually. Yeah,
and also it doesn't hurt. So if you, in the beginning, it doesn't do that much for you, maybe you have to wait until it understands you better, or if you give some more descriptions in your comments, and you will see that it's actually helpful in some cases, not in all cases, but
But in real life, let's say, do you actually use it?
Yeah, I use it a lot, and I'm surprised that a lot of people are not using it. That's always a surprise if I ask around and I'm not using it. They think maybe it's not that useful, but it makes my life as a developer easier. So.
And what specifically do you feel like makes it easier?
Yeah, for instance, it could also help like beginners with like generating algorithms or pieces of code. But in my case specifically, it's like sometimes you have these like boring code that you already know about some properties or some data fields that you have to fill in, and you can just for instance, also in the presentation I gave an example. I'm porting an application from AngularJS to Blazor. And in the old application, it's all in different syntax in JavaScript or in TypeScript, actually. And if you want to convert that to C#, then if you want to manually type that, that's not fun to do. So I just copy the TypeScript code into the comment of the C# and then start typing one line, and it can just generate all the other lines just like that. So it saves a lot of boring work. So that's one thing. Another thing is, of course, it can also generate methods or complete implementations. So, and I also had one experience where I was planning to do it a certain way, and then the Copilot suggested another way, which I thought was, that's a nice way of doing it. It's actually more efficient. I think it was async enumerable or something like that. That I hadn't used much, but then because of the suggestion, you also learn. So then it suggests something that you may not have used, and then you can check if it's okay, because you also have to check always what the AI is suggesting. So that's helpful.
You also learn new stuff by the suggestions, but you say checking what it does. I mean, do you mean you just literally check the code that's written, or but like manually just reading it as you read another person's code, and then be like, this is nonsense.
Not blind. It's not nonsense. I don't know if you sometimes, that's more in the second part of my presentation where we have chat interaction. Then you encounter that more, but with GitHub Copilot and tools like Codium and AWS Code Whisperer, I didn't see much nonsense. But
they're quite. They don't suggest like really weird things where you're like.
Not in my experience, but
okay.
But anyway, of course, you should not blindly trust the AI, and that's something we have all seen on the internet, with ChatGPT, and but.
Overall, with Copilot, it works well.
Yeah, in my experience, it works quite well, and it's just helpful. And of course, there are. I mean, I read these numbers like 50% productivity increase. That's not my experience, but it depends, I think, on what you're doing. So maybe if you're generating new code, and it can help a lot. But if you're debugging or if you have other work to do, then it's. Sometimes there's a day where I don't have a lot of support by the tool, and other days it's really great. Also for unit tests, it's really great.
But overall, maybe that's a good measure. If tomorrow all these tools would go away, you would miss them, basically.
Yeah, that's actually that's certain, because especially for the boring work, or you're typing a comment, it fills up your comment. So it's. It's just supportive. So I certainly miss that if I don't have them.
So it sounds almost for you like it's a programming assistant or something.
Yeah, it's just like with the IntelliSense that everybody's using, or most of the people. Maybe some people are still typing in Notepad or something, but it's certainly added value. And why should you not use it? That's.
So you were talking about the different type of tool. What's the difference between these two types of tools? One is like Copilot and Code Whisperer and Codium, and then the other one is?
Yeah, that's the new generation. Like they have chat integrated into the IDE. So then you can like ChatGPT, but then in your IDE. So then you can select a piece of code in your editor, and then you can ask the AI about it, explain it, or.
And with Copilot, you cannot do this. It just gives you autocomplete functions.
There's no real interaction except for when you type a comment, you can hint it a bit.
Okay.
But it's not like, it's not that advanced.
Okay. So, and with these new tools, you can engage in a conversation.
Yeah, you can ask also general programming questions or things about a library, and sometimes you have to double check it, but that's always good to.
So it's a more natural interaction, or not, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, it's more advanced because you have more options that you. Like I said, you can ask it to generate unit tests. You can ask it to explain a piece of code. You can ask it to fix a bug. Yeah, I personally have not been very successful with that option, but of course all these tools are also very much in development.
So the difference is with the Copilot, you're just writing your code and seeing what suggestions it makes, and here you can literally say like, "Hey, can you please do X, Y, Z?"
Yeah, and then if it gives a suggestion, you can iterate on that. So sometimes then I ask it to generate a unit test, and it doesn't do it using my favorite testing framework. So then I have to specifically ask for that.
Right.
Or it generates a unit test and I don't quite like it, and I can tweak it a bit, and then generates a new one.
And how useful is this type of tool? Has that been for you?
Well, the chat options are relatively new, so I have not, and also I think I cannot use them at my workplace because it's a secure environment. So there they have their own ChatGPT instance, and I do use that one. So then it's not like integrated, but you can still use the AI for some questions and some. Yeah, it's varying success. So for instance, I had a TypeScript function that I had to convert to C#, and just out of laziness, I asked it into the AI, and I saw the code it generated. I thought, well, this is not very optimal. So then I said, well, you should better use this and this. And then he said, yes, I agree, but then I'm a bit curious, why doesn't it give me the good suggestion at once? But so it's a bit mixed, but it can help you. You can just paste in code and then ask questions about it and stuff like that. But in the so the chat integration in the IDE, it's also coming now to Visual Studio and the JetBrains IDEs. Well, it's still in early access program, but these things are coming. So sooner or later you will have the option to use them, and it's nice to already have an idea of what you can do with it.
Right. But it sounds like this is also, in a literal sense, more work in the sense that you have to really engage.
It's not more work, because if you have to write your unit tests by hand yourself, then it takes more work and more thinking power. And if you can just ask this thing for this class,
yeah, but if you then have to correct it a few times, and then someone might say like, "Oh, it would have probably have been quicker if I would have."
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, but there is one thing I hope they will soon improve. That is because now you have this chat window, and you interact with the chat windows, and every time it generates or it suggests new code, you have to copy and paste it to your own editor, and I think that's a bit.
The chat and the editor are not that well integrated at the moment.
And also for unit tests, you have to create a project, and so this is also boring work that I could automate.
Yeah, so
I guess in the future it will probably just be there, but
it will probably be aware of the editor and create new files by itself and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and also the context, it's now a bit limited, I think, to the files maybe that you opened or that you specifically show.
Right.
But it doesn't understand your full project and all the context and stuff. So, but of course, in the future that will probably be much better, and then these tools will get smarter, and then maybe we have less to do as a developer.
Yeah, that's my next question. So where do you see this going? You've been developing a long time. Now, if you've been using these tools, you can kind of, in your mind, see where they're going.
At the current level, they are, in my opinion, not a replacement for a real developer. It can generate code, but it can also generate nonsense. And you have to have somebody who steers this. I mean, You have to have somebody who has the overall view, if you're building new stuff, you want to use new techniques, new architectures, and the AI is mostly lagging behind a bit in that case. So also it suggests stuff that I think, 10 years ago I would have done it like that, but now I want to use
a different library.
Like new tools or new features in the language.
But you do see you will use them.
Yeah, sure.
For sure in the future. So there's no going back in that sense.
Yeah, but it depends because a friend of mine said, I'm not using it because why should I? And I thought, okay, that's okay for you, but I'd like to work as efficient as possible. And also it makes, it is, sometimes you have less typing work or thinking power needed, so it makes your day easier.
Right.
So why should you not use it?
So your advice is to every programmer to start playing with
Absolutely,
these tools, basically.
Absolutely.
Right. And what is the easiest way to start?
Yeah, in the presentation I have a link to my GitHub repo with all kinds of links, but so you can try out GitHub Copilot or Codium or AWS Code Whisper.
Codium is open source or?
No, it's not open source, but it's free for individual use. And
okay.
Lots of these things are free. Also, AWS Code Whisper is free for individuals, and then so that you can already try. And also Tab9, I have not tried myself. And there are, of course, lots of others are there and coming, and also Google has things like this, but maybe they're not available
yet.
So there are lots of options. So I would at least try one or two of them and
see how it goes. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you want
I do want to mention that these chat integration tools, they are not yet widely available, and I also would hope that they improve it a bit more, like I said, with the more integration with the IDE itself, and also that you can, for instance, specify I want to use this unit testing library always, or I want to have this option like nullable enabled in C#.
So more personalized, basically.
Yeah, so that you not every time have to ask for that. And
so it really becomes a personal programming assistant because it knows exactly the way you code, like the libraries you like to use.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. We will link to both the YouTube video and GitHub repository in the description. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again. You're a returning guest, so
all right.
Let's talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.